The Injustice franchise is one of my favorite fighting game franchises ever created. I love the characters, the gameplay, and the introduction to a Mortal Kombat like style. So, with Mortal Kombat 1 ending and the fan outcry for Injustice 3 being bigger than ever, I thought there would be no better time than now to make a roster prediction. Now, the first thing we have to figure out when doing this is what's the size of the roster going to be. So I went back to the last two to figure out how big this one should be. Injustice 1 had 24 characters in the base roster and 6 DLC, which made 30 total. Injustice 2 had 38 total characters, 28 in the base, and 10 DLC. This means that Injustice 3 will likely have an increase of 4 characters for the base roster. This can be the number overall, not just new characters, and 4 for DLC, and an increase of 3 guests. All this to say that my total base roster is 33, with 15 characters being DLC, making the entire roster 48 characters. I broke the DLC up between 5, 5, and 4 characters, 3 packs. And one thing I also want to say right away is that I'm assuming that all of these characters that return have the exact same movesets as they did before. This not only because this happened already between Injustice 1 and 2, but also because it also helps with development time and allows them to just reuse some assets in existing characters and have more time to create new ones. Another thing I wanted to mention is the story. NetherRealm loves to base the rosters, at least the base rosters, around what the story is going to be. And while a lot of people may not like this, it's definitely going to be the multiverse. That's what they were setting up in the first 2 games, and I think they'll continue it here. And even though people are tired of the multiverse, I think it's a good way to bring back characters that were dead. So I'll take that into consideration as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is the pre-order bonus, and that's going to be Raish Agul. He's a character that has yet to appear in the franchise, and people have been wanting him in for a long time. I'm putting him as the pre-order bonus because in the multiverse, there really isn't a good place for him in the story, and the pre-order bonus is considered DLC, so it is not necessary to connect him to the story at all. They did this with Darkseid in the second game. With that out of the way, I want to start with the characters that I do think will return. First off, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are all staples in the series and DC as a whole, so I don't think they're going anywhere. Next, The Flash, Green Lantern, and Aquaman all definitely have to be in there. They're staples of the DC franchise and would work perfectly in this game once again, and they're founding Justice League members. Now moving on to a couple of villains. I think Joker, Harley Quinn, and Lex Luthor are must-haves for this game. It shocked me that Lex Luthor was not in the second game, because while he technically died, I think he's too popular to have been kept out, and Joker nearly missed it, but they worked him into a hallucination cutscene just so they could include him. But I think with the multiverse or some other way, I think they need to bring them back, especially after Lex Luthor had such a big impact in the Superman movie and was played brilliantly by Nicholas Hoult. Next, I wanted to talk about the returning Batman villains, and I actually only have one, other than Joker and Harley Quinn, that being Bane. I'm cutting Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, and all the other ones just because I have ones that can replace them, and I don't think they're that integral to the story. Next, we have some more fan favorites from the hero side, those being Supergirl, Green Arrow, and Blue Beetle, and Black Canary. All of them were well received in the first 2 games and would work well in this new game, and people would love to see them back. I'm also bringing back Shazam. I think we need one of the 2 Magic Shazam type users in this game, and I'm going to cut Black Adam, not only because he's basically been reduced popularity wise to a meme after the Black Adam movie bombed, but Shazam is just a little bit more of a fun character that we need in the game. Now, I wanted to touch on some DLC characters that were in the first two games I think should return for this one. Those being Red Hood, Lobo, and Darkseid. All of them, I think, need to have some kind of a presence in the story mode, and I think Red Hood should be our resident Robin for this game. We had Nightwing in the first one, then we had Tim Drake's Robin in the second, so now having Red Hood in the third would make sense. He was in the second game, but he didn't have much of a presence because he was only DLC. And then obviously we have to have Lobo. I should have said this earlier, but I'm assuming this is going to be the last game. Warner Brothers seems to be focusing more on Mortal Kombat every day, but I think Injustice 3 is probably fairly close to completion. So I think they're going to go ahead and finish that one. But I'll be surprised if we ever get another one, although I would love it. So I think having Lobo and Darkseid in here would be perfect. And I also think that Darkseid needs to be in here so that he could be defeated by our new big bad, which I'll get to later. The final character I have on the returning characters is Gorilla Grodd. I think it's important to have a Flash villain in here, and he would be the best fit, in my opinion, especially as having big body characters, something we don't get a lot in fighting games, and NetherRealm games in particular. And now for the verse of the day. Revelations 5:12 says, saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive power, wealth, wisdom, strength, honor, glory, and blessing. Now I'm getting on to the 12 new characters, which will bring our total up to 33 in the base roster. And the first is the big bad of the game, that being Anti-Monitor. Simply put, he monitors the multiverse to make sure it doesn't get too big, but he does this by destroying other universes. And he's very similar to Galactus on a power level, but he is able to shrink down to a normal size, and I think he would make a great character in this game. The main reason I also want him in is because I think in the story mode, the one way that he would show off his power is by defeating Darkseid. Now, I wanted to mention some Batman villains, and each game has introduced roughly two new ones that are not your mainstays like Bane, Harley Quinn, and Joker. Firstly, I wanted to have Clayface. I think, again, big body characters in fighting games are really fun, and NetherRealm has never done a real stretchy character, so them being able to experiment with that would be really cool. And then I wanted to go with one of the crime boss type characters from Batman's Rogues Gallery. Now, there are plenty that I could choose from, like Two-Face, Penguin, and so on. But the problem with those two is that there really isn't too much that they would do. I'd love for them to add Two-Face and give him a luck mechanic where some attacks have a 50% chance of failing or things like that. But I think that kind of mechanic would be too crazy for what is usually just a dude with a gun. And the Penguin, while he's cool, I think actually the biggest issue with him is that he's typically very short, so his hitbox would be weird. Instead, I'm going to go with the Riddler. And I think his popularity has soared since the Batman movie. And I think there's just so much more that you can do with him, not only to make him really fun, but also unique from the Joker. The Joker is much more of a rush down zoner, whereas I think you can make the Riddler much closer to a trap type character. I would love it if they would add the Batman skin. Next, I said before I'm cutting Sinestro and Atrocitus, so I'm going to replace them with Mephiles, or the Orange Lantern. He is powered by greed, so giving him tons of money type attacks would be really cool. Next, I have one of the most popular picks that people have said need to be in this game, that being Beast Boy. I think after Mortal Kombat 1, Beast Boy is far more possible than ever, simply because the mechanic of him changing into an animal on the fly is much easier for them to do now with the technology. In Mortal Kombat 1, T-1000 was able to change from his normal mode to liquid metal form and into other characters on the fly. as well as the animalities changing all the cast into animals extremely quickly. So I feel like that was almost a test run for the character. Next, I wanted to pick some more grounded characters because in the first game we had Deathstroke, in the second we had Deadshot, and now I'm going to add Bloodsport. He is much more interesting than the first two, in my opinion, simply because his gun has the ability to change on the fly to many different weapons he wants. So having a mechanic similar to Captain Cold in the second game, where he can change it and upgrade it over time, would be really cool. Another one I'm choosing is Katana. She's a very from DC, not Mortal Kombat, to be clear. And she's a very popular character. She'd be an extremely agile character and a good foil to a character I have coming up. I wanted to add some more characters from the Superman movie that weren't already in the first game because of how well it's doing. And I think adding these characters in would be smart. These are going to be Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho. Metamorpho could be a very fascinating character in this game because of how much moveset potential he has. He can change his body into any type of substance on Earth and in space. In the movie, he turns his hand into kryptonite to weaken Superman. So having different moves do different effects to different characters would be really cool. Mr. Terrific is also a very cool character. In comics, he's known as the third smartest man alive. I don't know who the first two are, don't ask me. But he has a really cool mechanic. He has really cool abilities in the movies where his T-spheres help him fly, create force fields, and shoot lasers. Combining all this would be a very fun move set. It would almost be terrific.
Say that again?
Next, I wanted to pick another fan favorite that fans have been asking for, and that's going to be Constantine, or John Constantine, however you prefer. He's one of the most premier magic users in the DC universe, and he's just a very fun, laid back, down his luck type of character. That'd just be fun to see in this game. Next, I wanted to pick two characters that are going to be kind of your out there picks. Ones that are on the main roster that people are not going to know really exist, and they're going to be the replacements for those like Firestorm, Doctor Fate, or Swamp Thing. And they're going to be Livewire and Terra. I think a decent amount of people know Terra, if from nothing else, the Teen Titans cartoons, and having an Earthbender type character would be really cool. But I don't really know that many people who know who Livewire is. She has lightning powers, but she can also teleport. I think there's so much that can be done with an electricity moveset, and even after all these years, NetherRealm has just scratched the surface with it, and I think she's a very likely character. Now that's the base roster. So now I'm going to get on to the DLC roster. And these are going to be broken up with three DC characters, one guest character from other media, and one from Mortal Kombat. Because obviously they own this franchise and they're going to want to input all their characters as much as they can. With the first pack, I have Static or Static Shock. And this is a very popular character and I think definitely needs to be used in more things. And his moveset would be really cool. He has lightning powers, of course, but can also hover on top of a manhole cover and lift objects with electricity to be thrown. I think there's so much that you could do with this type of power that could be cool and also differentiate him from Livewire, who would have more of a standard lightning move set. Next, I went back and forth between King Shark and Killer Croc, simply because both of them are extremely popular, and I think if one gets added in, the other will be a premier skin for them, or a costume, or whatever you want to say. Killer Croc is probably more likely just because he was in one of the stage transitions in the second game, and as far as we've seen, every one of those characters that has been shown off in those have either come in the following game or DLC later in the same game, and Baraka had a skin for him in Mortal Kombat 11. Although King Shark is definitely the more popular character after the Sushi Squad movie. So it could really go either way. I think both have a very similar moveset at the end of the day, so it really doesn't matter. Another fascinating character is Jinx. And I think that this is where you use the bad luck powers. I think Shidi's mechanics where each of her moves has a 50% or a certain percentage to fail or get stronger, but she can also induce bad luck upon their enemies too. That'd be a very cool way to implement it. And she has way more powers than Two-Face, so I think using that ability here would be better. Now for the Mortal Kombat character, this one was easy. It's Johnny Cage. He's one of the most popular characters, and honestly, he would work well in the DC universe. Not much more to say. His moveset's pretty self explanatory. Now, for the other guest character, this one was also a no brainer. It's Omni Man was in Mortal Kombat 1, and Invincible's popularity has done nothing but grow over the past couple of years, with several more seasons coming soon, a video game coming out in the next year or so, and a live action movie being made at some point down the line. It would just be smart to do this, and I'm sure it would be extremely easy for them to do so. Now for the second pack, I have Booster Gold. This one was a really easy choice as well. He was a random guy that lived in the future and then decided to become a superhero by stealing a ton of technology. He has lots of cool abilities like time travel, flight, and his little buddy Skeets to help him out. And he's just a very fun character that could be cool to see interact with Johnny Cage, Invincible, and Constantine. Next, I have Rorschach. And I think it's definitely possible, if not guaranteed, that we're going to get a Watchmen character in the next game. And I think Rorschach is the most likely one. For those who don't know, Watchmen was another comic series that DC bought and pretty much just absorbed into their entire universe. And hopefully he's not a guest character or considered a guest character, because I don't want him to take the place of another character, but I think he'll definitely be in there. Next is Bumblebee, and she would fight kind of similar to the Atom, where she can shrink, but she had a lot more interesting moves because she can fly, shoot lasers from her hands, and stuff like that. The next Mortal Kombat character I have is Liu Kang. And this one's probably guaranteed simply because in Mortal Kombat 1, there was a lot of time travel multiverse shenanigans. And I think it would be cool if his tower ending showed him going to that universe because he needed help fighting some tournament or something like that. And I think his moveset is obviously pretty self explanatory. Another one that I have is He Man. Now, I don't really like He Man, especially after having Conan, who's very similar to him in Mortal Kombat 1. But I think it's pretty much guaranteed that he comes to the game. He's been in Injustice comic books before, and it's just very likely that he'll be in the game. And again, this is a predictions video. It's not my personal list. If my personal list was on here, he would not be in the game. But I think that's just how it's going to end up happening. For my final pack, I have several fan favorites and one kind of out there pick. My first one is Plastic Man. And it's really shocking that he's not been in the first two games just for how popular he is. And again, just going off the idea that this might be the last game, I think they would really take advantage of putting him in now. And again, stretchy powers is something that they've not really experimented with much. So seeing the distinction between his shape-shifting powers and the more brutish, slimy type character that Clayface is would be a cool mirroring. Next, I have Batman Beyond, and he definitely needs to be in this game. Terry McGinnis is extremely popular. He had his whole TV show that was really fun back in the day. He almost had an entire movie made after him. Now, I know for those who don't know, having two Batmans on this list would be crazy, but Terry McGinnis is much different than that because his powers are much more future tech based, like compared to Batman's pretty normal tech and karate skills. So I think you can make a good distinction between them. Now, I wanted to pick some kind of crazy out there pick that a lot of people either have not heard of or just don't find very interesting that could be turned into an awesome moveset. and that's going to be Mirror Master. I think something that NetherRealm needs to do more of is experiment with portals as a gimmick. They did this a lot with Quan Chi and Mortal Kombat 1, and it was extremely fun. So adding it to a character that most people think is a loser and making him extremely fun to play would be cool. My final character is the only guest character that I have that doesn't come from comic books or Mortal Kombat, and that's going to be Ben 10. I wish that Warner Brothers and Cartoon Network would do more with this character. He's been dead for several years, and the reboot was not even that good. So having him in Injustice 3 would be incredible. I think there's so much move potential that you could do with him, and after adding the TMNT in the last game, having them all combined into one would be really cool. Sure, there are plenty of different ways to screw this up, but I think the best way that could be done is either giving him a select few characters that he can switch between, like 5 or 6 that all have their own move sets, or choosing one before the match that you have to use for the entire thing. Or even giving him, or you could even give him a system where each move, each special move turns him into a different character. If they put him in, they definitely have to have the Alien Force version, just because, not only because having Kid been in there would kind of be weird, even though Shazam fights in it, but you still get my point. They don't usually put kids in fighting games. And also because if he's going to remain in kid form for longer than a couple of seconds at a time, his hitbox would be very strange. So I'd definitely go with the teenage one unless they're going to keep him in. Do you agree? Or do you have other ideas? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!